here today. I'm Ray from the Rabbit Welfare Association and Fund, and I'm here with our fantastic vet, Richard, who is a specialist and world-recognised vet. Very lucky to have him. And as part of Rabbit Awareness Week, we are talking about rabbit diets. So, Richard, could you just please start off by giving everyone a reminder of what a rabbit diet should consist of, please?
Yeah, sure, Ray. Thanks. Thanks for the introduction. Very, very kind of you to say that. So basically, rabbits, as we know, in the world, eat grass, and that's got to constitute the vast majority of their diet in captivity too. They're the same species. We change them a lot in terms of conformation, their teeth and their ears and such like, but they're the same species and they eat grass. So where grass is available and it doesn't grow particularly well in the winter, we want them to have a diet which is as high in grass as possible. And by that, I mean somewhere between about 80 and 90% of their diet must consist of grass, and the rest to be sort of, weeds, dandelions, sulphur salt, those kind of fibrous green leafy plants. And you can buy, greens and such like in supermarkets, again, which can constitute a little bit of their diet, about sort of 5 or 10%. And then the pellets that we think of as rabbit food are really just the kind of icing on the cake. They're the top of the food pyramid. They occupy the kind of space in the rabbit food pyramid that chocolate would in ours. They're a treat, basically. And I know owners who use them solely as a training aid, basically. The rabbit comes up to them, they give them a couple of pellets and give them a tickle under the chin to feel their teeth or to check for dampness around the face or such like. So yeah, 5% of their diet wants to be that kind of concentrate food. And in the equine world, they refer to them as kind of hay balancers because they have got a higher level of vitamins and minerals in. And we, for that reason, really cannot recommend muesli-based mixes because they allow a kind of selective eating process where they pick out the favourite tasty bits and they miss the boring looking nuggets, which are actually those vitamin and mineral rich components. And as I mentioned before, grass isn't always available. And so as a substitute for grass, hay is probably the next best thing. It's dried grass. You can actually buy dry grass products like made by some of the big food companies, both for rabbits and for horses. And as long as they haven't been sprayed with molasses to make them more palatable, those are good alternatives. But good quality Timothy or mixed meadow fescue hay is probably the most available and next best thing. And that can be fed all year round, as well as grass as a sole forage source in the winter. And when you're buying hay, you want to look at it, sniff it. It wants to be not dusty. It wants to not be mouldy. It wants to smell of fresh summer meadows. It wants to be something that you know is going to be palatable and appealing to rabbits. So yeah, hay or grass, green leafy vegetation, tiny carrots as a vitamin supplement.
Thank you. And why is hay so important, hay and grass? Why is that such an important part of your diet?
Yes, I mean, that's the absolute central question. That's such a great question. So basically, we want sorry. The reason it's important, the reason hay and grass are important, are that they require a lot of breaking down to liberate the food materials inside those cellulose cell walls. They're very difficult to break down. They have to be ground down by the teeth into a fine sort of mulch, and then they have to go into the gut where gut bacteria release the energy from the plant cells. And so wild rabbits have adapted to eating something which takes a lot of chewing. And if you watch them chewing, you'll see their mouths moving in a kind of figure of eight, side to side fashion, a bit like kind of old-fashioned millstones. And they're grinding that material down. And they've adapted, the way that they've adapted to do that is to have continuously growing teeth. If we don't give them something they have to chew and continuously wear their teeth down on, their teeth simply grow too long. They grow out of proportion, they grow into the soft tissues of the mouth, into the tongue, into the cheek, and they become a painful, horrible, uncomfortable, painful problem that can lead to the rabbit dying.
Yeah. So to keep the teeth healthy, and of course, eating is a nice way to spend your time as well, especially if you're a rabbit.
Exactly. In the wild, they would spend most of their time eating. socialising with other rabbits. If we don't give them that time, if we give them all their food available in a bowl that they can polish off in 5 minutes just by going chop, 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 we leave them with a whole barren sort of period of time during the day where they have no positive behaviours, and then we start to see stereotypical behaviour. We start to see them chewing things they shouldn't. We start to see them scratching and chewing at carpets and inappropriate items. So it's a positive welfare thing for them to have the right diet, and it's also important for the rest of the guard. If we don't give them enough fibre, they're at much, much greater risk of developing life-threatening gut stasis problems, and that can lead to them bloating and dying.
Yeah. So hay is essential, and not just for their teeth, for boredom, and to keep the gut healthy as well.
Exactly.
What about water, Richard? Is water important?
Definitely. Water is often described as the forgotten nutrient. We kind of forget. It's so ubiquitous and it's so important that we kind of forget it. So rabbits need water available in either bottles or bowls or both. I think both is a good idea because bowls can certainly get turned over. Rabbits are playful and destructive animals, and they love to rearrange their furniture. So they're very good at picking up bowls and tipping them around, and then they're left without water. So water needs to be checked and changed and filled up frequently, and bottles perhaps provide an alternative source that can't be got rid of in quite such an easy way. But they drink better from bowls. So I would say bowls with bottles as a backup. And if they don't get enough water, in extreme cases, they become dehydrated. But the process of dehydration can lead to gut stasis again, and it can lead to all sorts of problems. When we had a recent hot summer a couple of years ago, it was it emerged that one of the big triggers for colic in horses is not having water troughs filled up because they were evaporating too fast, and that was triggering quite a lot of cases of colic in horses and rabbits. So basically, little horses with sticky up ears.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Do we need to feed indoor rabbits a different diet to outdoor rabbits?
Well, generally speaking, probably not, but there is one area I'll come to where we do. I guess they're the same species, they have the same requirements whether they're indoors or outdoors. The only differences really are that if they're indoors, it's unlikely that they're going out and being able to graze on grass in a run. So we might have to cut grass and bring it in. And if we're going to do that, we need to be very, very careful that cut grass isn't cut too fine or left too long, because it can wilt and ferment and go off. And this is one of the reasons we always say to people, don't feed lawnmower clippings. You know, they're basically a fermented mass of grass. Or you can feed them hay or dry grass products that we kind of mentioned before. A lot of people with indoor rabbits don't want hay everywhere around the house because it's messy, and we have to accept if we're going to have rabbits, they need to be fed correctly, and a little bit of hay around the house is no problem for them. The only area where there is some controversy is around vitamin D. We know that it's important for us to get vitamin D from the action of UV light on our skin, and if we keep rabbits indoors, UV light doesn't travel through glass windows, and there's a chance that they don't have enough vitamin D as a result of that. The answers to that are either to allow them some outdoor time. There's no reason why you can't have a cat flap into a run, or to guide your rabbit out into a run to get some UV light. That's one option. The other option is that we give them vitamin D in the diet, and there are indoor rabbit brands of food, and again, you know, they're a vitamin and mineral supplement, if anything, not a sole source of nutrition. And the last thing to say is that plants generate vitamin D in the surface layers of their tissues as well. If you stick, I know mushrooms aren't plants, but if you stick mushrooms that have been grown in the dark, if you test them for vitamin D levels, they're very low. If you stick them on a windowsill outside and expose them to the sun, their vitamin D levels go up. And hay is essentially grass that's been sunbathing for the past few days or weeks, so it tends to be quite high in vitamin D. So apart from vitamin D, which, as I say, is a little bit controversial, there's no real difference in nutrition whether they're indoor or outdoor rabbits. I guess the only other thing to say is that indoor rabbits aren't usually exposed to the same low temperatures. so they probably require a little bit less in the way of energy content, because they're not having to generate energy to keep warm. But they should be getting the same amount of exercise indoors as outdoors. They should be given those opportunities to run and jump and play, so that should make a difference.
Okay, thank you. What happens if we are noticing that rabbits, whether they're indoors or outdoors, are either losing weight or gaining weight? How do we decide how we adjust our diet, or could there be other reasons for that?
That's a really good question again. I think a lot of rabbits are underweight and a lot of rabbits are overweight, and they kind of, when you look at the statistics, it almost appears that because the two things cancel out, that rabbits are probably somewhere in the middle. But for individual rabbits, being underweight and overweight are very real problems. So the way to kind of spot that, because rabbits are quite fluffy, they molt and they suddenly look thinner, they develop a winter coat and they suddenly look fatter. So it's really important to both assess their body condition score and gently run your hand over their spine, their rump, over the muscles of their back, and gain an appreciation of what they should feel like, and then notice when they're gaining or losing weight. And the other thing to do, obviously, is weigh them, put them in little cardboard box or pet carrier and weigh them. Sorry. And you expected perhaps a little bit of fluctuation from season to season, but nothing significant. If they're gaining weight, it's usually because of inactivity and overfeeding. And as the saying goes, it takes you can't run away from a bad diet. It's not usually exercise, which is the main factor. It's a minor factor. It's mainly that they're simply eating too much. And what they're probably doing, in most cases, because it's very difficult to get fat on just hay, they're probably having too much pelleted food. And it's usually a simple matter to gradually reduce that amount of pelleted food until their weight goes to where you want it to be. I think that's a really good point to say that you really should have your rabbit checked out by a vet before you start trying to get them to lose weight, because if they have got tooth problems brought on by eating too much pellet and not enough hay, they're going to struggle when you take the pellet away. When we look at the other extreme, losing weight, either you're feeding them too little, or quite possibly, and more likely, I'm afraid, they've got one of the various disease problems that rabbits can get, which cause them to lose weight. So kidney failure, diabetes, those are, kidney failure is relatively common. Diabetes is almost unheard of because of their diet. But the vast majority of these rabbits will have dental disease brought on by these poor diets and genetics from before. And if they can't chew their food, can't chew their hay, their teeth are not pointing in the right direction, they're painful, it stops them eating, they eat more slowly. Very often people say, oh, he can't have a problem with his teeth, he's still eating. It's because they're trying their best to eat. They're just not eating fast enough, they're not getting the nutrition in. And these rabbits can look like hat racks, they can just be skeletal under that fur.
Thank you. So if we notice any change in weight or change in food preferences or the speed at which they're eating, or even the movement of the jaw, the best thing is to go along to a rabbit savvy vet and have them checked. Just finally, have you got any tips, any diet related tips to give to owners? You mentioned there the body condition score, so that would be one.
Yeah, well, if you want an idea of how to decide what body condition score should be, there is the pet sizeometer, rabbit sizeometer, which is available online. I think it's the PFMA, the Pet Food Manufacturers Association, but you can search for it and find it. And that gives you an idea of where your rabbit should be. I guess my tip, apart from what we said before, hay, grass, etc., is green leafy weeds. They can be a bit of a variety, a source of different things for them to still good for them. My biggest top tip is I do think very small amounts of pellets, so first thing in the morning, fed perhaps from the hand or from just in front of them, gives you an opportunity to assess your rabbit at the beginning of the day and check that they are eating okay. And if they're dropping food, if they're reluctant to eat, it's a big red flag. It's it's bedtime at that point, because rabbits can go downhill so very, very quickly. So if they don't come running for that treat, that very palatable, tiny, small bit of pellet in the morning, then I'm really, really worried. And straight to your vet.
Straight to the vet. Okay. Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much for talking to us about diets. And I'm sure we can put a link to the rabbit-o-meter in the comments.
That's
Okay,
great.
thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Ray.